Truthfully, the worst thing you can do when getting into fragrance is overthinking and buying too quickly. So if I could start over with the 3-bottle fragrance collection, this would give you a little idea of what I would go for. I just want you to go out there and explore your own scent journey, but this will give you a little direction in terms of how much you can cover with 3 fragrances. I think you'd be surprised how many situations that's gonna be. All right, let's get into it. Hey guys, I'm Patrick. So essentially we're trying to see how much fragrance can do for you with the max of 3 bottles. So essentially instead of going for a fragrance profile, we're gonna really be talking about the role a fragrance will play in your identity, if you will. So I think really the first one that comes to mind will be the most obvious, and that's gonna be like a daily, whether this is gonna be for the office, for leisure, for really any event that comes to mind. We wanna have a somewhat safe option that can either be more run-of-the-mill or more standout-ish. Really just depends on you, your personality, what you're going for. And again, that pertains to not rushing into the fragrance journey. Really truthfully, if you're going for a daily, I do see a lot of people say, a daily can be a dumb reach fragrance, but I do agree with that, certainly. Like I definitely see the reasoning within that, but I think you can also play the other side of that. Something that you wear so much and maybe you can consider your signature, you may want to put more thought into it, just so you have that unique staple to you. So today, I have a couple examples for you. So really what I want to do is go for a more affordable version of something, especially some people just getting into fragrance maybe don't want to spend that extra cash right away. So first we've got Supremacy Collector's Edition from Afnan. I really don't think you can go wrong with this. Dupes inspired buys can get a lot of bad reputation for kind of cutting corners, essentially, really trying to minimize costs as much as they can. But I do think this is one of the standout fragrances that just feels overall more complex, a little more well-rounded out, smoother in its overall experience. I find with a lot of dupes you can get a really nice initial impression, but whether that's the longer you own it or just literally from the beginning to the dry down, your experience may vary. This is not to say that for every fragrance. I still really see a market for dupes. It just makes a lot of sense financially for so many people. And I think really when you find those standout ones that deliver something like this at, around 40 to 50 bucks when it first came out, it's really hard to beat in terms of the quality presented at that price and just really, price to performance. Whew, that's so good. Here, let me switch hands. I swear I'm always holding the mic with my left. I gotta switch it up. So really just the realism of the pineapple. Like I never really thought I would enjoy pineapple as a note, and this is one of the first fragrances I put my nose on. I got a sample of it. Just the realism of the pineapple, I'm sure you could find that in a lot of other niche fragrances, maybe designers if they're going that realm. But for like I said, just the price to quality, I don't know, it just does a very convincing job. And you do get a pretty heavy oak moss ambergris dry down. So really sustaining, longevity. Well, I just threw the tester. This could be a little too much for a daily. This is a somewhat intense fragrance, I would say, for a daily, and really could carry you into so many other roles as well. But this is just, an example of something cheaper that really does bring the quality to the table. And so that's really why I showed it off. But again, this is just an idea. It's more about the role the fragrance can play. Again, I just want you to be able to cover your bases, essentially. But this is a great recommendation from me, and I'm sure you've seen many other people. Can't go wrong with this one, unless it's not your thing. That's no biggie at all. We all have our tastes, and we all deserve to be subjective in that, right? So if you want to go a little more elevated in terms of price point, really not that much more. Cedrat Boisé from Mancera. This was the first bottle I picked up of any fragrance at all. Just smelled it at the mall, and already knew about discounters by then. So I said, thanks for showing me the bottle, thanks for letting me sample. But no, I bought this from Aura Fragrance. Very vivid memories, just because this is my first full bottle ever purchased, and honestly pretty good for a first purchase. I've never smelled the intense version. I'm sure you couldn't go wrong there either, but honestly, whichever one's cheaper, if you're just starting out, I don't think you could go wrong. It's kind of interesting. This is somewhat in the similar vein of Collector's Edition or Aventus Absolute. I know some people can kind of compare them. I would say, it's much more bergamot heavy, I would say the woods are heavier, not really focused on ambergris and oak moss as much, but really the overall DNA, the overall construction is very, in the realm of one another. But yeah, no, this is perfect for, again, maybe a little more assertive than some people may want for a daily, but it's really going to cover all your bases. It's just, yeah, no, this is good stuff. And I'm sure you see within the video, I do hold the tester strip differently. There's varying opinions. I really only do this because you can prop it up on a table, so it's like not getting oil all over your table. But I definitely understand the other side too, because you get more surface area. Whether that's a plus or minus is up to you. For me, it works just putting it on the table. It's nice. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that bergamot is like the front and center opening note, and honestly lasts for a while. Even enjoying bergamot, seeing how often bergamot is used, probably the most common top note in existence, right? Because it's a somewhat affordable natural oil. It's great, but yeah, I could see people being overburdened by all of the bergamot, because it's not like a blend of citruses. It's really like, it feels like pure bergamot for sure. But yeah, I just love the dry down on this. You do get woods, but it just gets smoothened out with little, some vanilla compounds. And it just, I don't know, it just works super well. These are both really good examples. I would say, I guess they're both in more of the realm of niche or trying to achieve niche. But your daily driver could certainly be a designer, but something that you really enjoy. It should really be about you at the end of the day. And yeah, as long as you're just not choking people out, I guess. But that really covers the number one bottle that I think, you really do need and just starting your journey. But I think a lot of us knew that already, and really these are just some good examples for you, but the world is your oyster. You have so much to pick from. So again, as I've been honing in on, just take your time, enjoy it, and really find that daily driver that speaks to you. All right, on to the next. A second fragrance I think that could cover all bases is a going out, date night, cooler months as well. Kind of in that realm of things, so a little more deep, rich, maybe complex, doesn't necessarily have to be, but you could go for something more complex as well. So again, I do have two options at two pretty different price points. My first one is going to be Mysterium Paris Corner. This is a pretty heavily twisted Xerjoff Iommi Monkey Special. I've smelled that a couple times in stores. I do really enjoy that one. But I did actually smell this before I smelled the Xerjoff. Really, I would say this is a more wearable version of that. I want to get my nose more on that until I speak into greater depths of that. I never want to talk about a fragrance unless I'm very confident about my wearing experience and what it really translates to for me. But yeah, I think Mysterium Paris Corner is a solid option, $30 to $40. You're going to get a nice richness based around patchouli, but this freshness that's really elevated with passion fruit. At least that's the accords that are listed, which you actually smell. What that translates to could vary, but I would say this is, cinnamon, patchouli richness, but just a little lighter. There, you could say citruses, fruits, passion fruit, whatever it may be at the top. Damn, pretty nice atomizer too. I have heard some people say, this is kind of a cinnamon bomb. It's just a little too much cinnamon. I do smell a lot of other things in there too. I believe rose is a pretty key component. But yeah, I like the way this one is done. It could almost feel mass appealing. I wouldn't call this safe either though. This has got richness. It's got some complexity, and really it lasts a good amount of time. Sticks to your clothes especially, I noticed. And my girlfriend really loves this on me. So, if that's something you want to consider too, I did mention briefly, like, maybe wearing this for date nights outside of just colder months, or your more evening scent. Yeah, this is a good go-to for sure. I don't see a ton of people really talking about it, but it is, for what it is, I think it's doing something a little different. Can't go wrong. Again, just my recommendation, but there's so many day night, colder month fragrances. I'm happy for you guys. If you're starting your journey right now, man, you you have anything you could ever imagine, honestly, at your disposal. I'm sure you've seen me talk about this a lot. Pretty much every video, almost, I've been talking about Gucci Intense Oud. You really cannot go wrong with this. You're gonna get oud rose, but it's done in such a smooth way. I would say, a lot of people would call this niche if it wasn't from Gucci. Like if you just put this in a decant and like said, where do you think this came from? I don't know if people would like say Gucci right away, unless, obviously they had smelled it before. So I don't know. This is just a masterpiece fragrance. I don't know if it'll ever get discontinued. I'm sure it will someday. Very grateful. Every time I see this bottle, I'm always like, I'm so grateful to have it in hand. But yeah, let's get it on strip. Yeah, I don't know. This just can't do anything wrong. Like I just cannot believe this exists for the price point that it does. Like it just doesn't feel right. I think discounters like 130 maybe. I picked it up for 65, 67, something like that. But man, I don't know. I'm not saying you couldn't pick up something like this. Rose oud, very, very, very common structure. But there's just so many ways that it's nuanced. Whether, that's talking about how rounded it is or soft versus the harshness that it may bring, the type of rose implemented. Are you going for the sweet, what people call like jammy rose? Are you going for something like this? Like, yeah, maybe a little jammy, but really everything is just getting smoothened out, and the oud, the woods that's in there, it's just blending everything super well together. I wouldn't say this is a fragrance where you're focused on like the hierarchy or the pyramid of notes. It's a culmination of everything, and it's done so well. Again, I talked about price to performance for collector's edition being a lower price, but this price to performance is just outright quality in the blending, in the formulation, in what they put into getting this result at the price they did. A lot of people talk about designers now not really elevating the game anymore, or just being content with almost copying one another, not note wise or formula wise, but like fragrance family. They're just trying to play it safe, almost trying to watch one another and see who really takes that next step, that next bet, if you will. So seeing stuff like this in the designer realm is beautiful. It's a good reminder that, once again, don't rush, don't always buy into the hype, regardless of niche, dupe, or designer. Just take your time, because the more time you take, you're gonna find more hidden gems out there. And it's okay if you don't like them. You might find something that's not as well known, not as well regarded, and that doesn't mean that it has to be for you either. Just take your time. It'll pan out in the long run, I promise. Last fragrance for you. I was thinking about doing 2 for this category, but I think this really hits home with the whole concept of the third bottle. The third bottle for you is going to be, something that you have more of an emotional connection to. Could be your kind of more fun fragrance, just your more personal fragrance, whatever you feel like represents you in the way you want to wear fragrance. So for me, I picked L'Instant Homme, the EDT from Guerlain. I actually was going to get the EDP, but I was not reading close enough on Joma Shop, unfortunately. So you could definitely tell I was a newbie back then. This was my maybe 3rd bottle I ever bought. Might have been the very, very first fragrance that I got my nose on in terms of a sample. Another good example of something like fun, maybe speaks to your personality, is like some of the Le Labos. Like if I were to pick one, Noir 29 would be mine. It really just depends on, do you want to go on the safer side? You want something more demanding of attention. Really it's all up to you. And I think this is a perfect bottle to put at 3rd, or a perfect example to put at 3rd rather, because it's going to be the one that you choose after you've already selected your other 2 bottles. So you're going to have more time to figure out which 3rd bottle is, carving out your uniqueness. And I really do just like this one. It has sentimental value as well too. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to have that. It doesn't have to mean that level of importance to you, but you'll find something unique for sure. For me, this is good. This works for so many occasions. Dress it up, dress it down. I would say some people probably say this is like a little more of a gentlemanly, little older than my age group fragrance, but like, that doesn't mean anything. You wear what you'd like. And there are ways to, if it feels like it's an older fragrance, there's so many ways to push that age down, if you will. How you dress, just your personality in general. Like, you don't let the fragrance wear you, right? Like, you really put your spin on it as a person, and that's important. Again, this is another fragrance. People talk about Guerlain being very well known for their private line. I guess this is just their more designer looking, designer feeling line. But every fragrance you get from Guerlain is just gonna have immaculate blending. immaculate attention to details. And I really like this one because I feel like star anise, you know, it's a spice used in like a lot of Asian broths or just Asian cuisine in general. It's nice to see that note in here, really balanced well with citrus. And then yeah, all of that just really blends well into patchouli. Since I smelled this so early in my journey, like I didn't even know this is what patchouli could give you, what vibe patchouli could give you. And they do list a cocoa note, I believe, as well. So that's almost reinforcing the patchouli as well, where you get that chocolatey effect essentially. But again, as you've heard in many videos, you know, you have duality again. Citrus, you know, uplifting tea, I believe, whether it's hibiscus or some kind of like red floral, geranium maybe, one of those. All of those are doing their job to lift up the fragrance while still giving you a unique base that just really, yeah. I'm sure there's fragrances, you know, that kind of do the same thing, but the fact that I was able to smell something like this so early on in my fragrance journey, you know, yeah, it's really hard for this not to stick with me. So there you go. Those are just some of my thoughts on a 3-bottle fragrance collection. Again, these are just ideas just for your inspiration, your interpretation, but I really want to challenge you to go out there and find what's meant for you. It's really cool that fragrance has been around so long, has so many different nuances, and really just honestly, to me, it has a place for anyone that wants to get into it. Please feel free in the comments to kind of share what 3 bottles you would select, or maybe 3 bottles that you did indeed select, whether you were happy with those decisions, or kind of wish that you know, reverted back and took more time. I do want to hear your experience as well. You know, this is all about community, and I care about what you guys have to say out there as well. After these 3 bottles, you know, I hope you're in a point of time where you've spent more time with fragrance, whether that's just sampling a ton of stuff or just enjoying the 3 that you have and going from there to, you know, find your next bottles and really having such a good understanding of you, what scent is to you. And I think you're going to be really satisfied with your journey, more so than, you know, rushing into it. As always, I appreciate you guys. I'll see you in another one. Thanks for all the feedback, all the comments, all the support. Peace out.